helicopter nearby, potentially the Phoenix police helicopter, tracking this SUV and using infrared technology to figure out exactly where this suspect could be headed this afternoon.
And sometimes from the view above, you know, it's hard to tell where this vehicle is going to be headed. And sometimes Phoenix police, they'll use stop sticks to try to stop this vehicle. Sometimes they'll use a pit maneuver to try to stop the vehicle as well. In this particular case, you know, it's really hard. They're going through a main Phoenix streets right here at a high rate of speed. And so the chase is on, and you just have to, you know, kind of brace yourself for anything could happen, whether it's a car crash or what have you. But obviously this driver picking up a lot of speed. Thank goodness there's not a whole lot of cars around this vehicle. But, you know, in a situation like this, you never know what could happen, whether there's pedestrians in the area or what have you. But again, we are following this from Sky 12 and still waiting word on who this driver may be. And if indeed this driver is connected to that Avondale Bank robbery, we're assuming that's the case. But again, still waiting on official confirmation if that is the case.
Driver now speeding along what looks like to be a 6-lane road, a major road somewhere in the Phoenix area. We're still trying to get an exact location on this. It's made a lot of twists and turns. It doesn't look like it's had a path just kind of going where what is easiest. And this is the first time we've seen that driver come to a red light during this. The driver has stopped, thank goodness, as traffic in the other direction is going, though it looks like it is inching forward, trying to get going as soon as possible. Other traffic nearby slowing down, trying to see. My eyes aren't that good to see exactly what it looks like. It was at a street to see what intersection it's at. We're now hearing this is 24th Street and Baseline, where this driver is right now. Again, potentially on the run from police, possibly connected to a robbery that happened in Avondale. We're told there is just one person, the driver, inside of that SUV. When Sky 12 is zoomed in, we can see the rear windows. Now that driver's decided it does not want to turn there, but will continue on Baseline. The rear windows on both sides of the SUV are shattered for some reason. We do not know exactly why, but the driver now continuing on what we believe is Baseline. It just passed the 24th Street area and is continuing. Phoenix police not directly nearby, but we do believe they're watching from the air, from their police helicopter.
And that was the longest that vehicle had stopped. Which,
it has been.
You know, you have to think, man, that could have been a perfect opportunity to try to apprehend the driver there. But again, that driver just then took off when it could not make a left-hand turn. And again, the driver is still in the South Phoenix area, when earlier it had thrown out what looked like some kind of a black bag or something out of the window in the residential area, not too far away from 7th Street and Broadway. That driver is going eastbound on Baseline right now. And again, as you can clearly see from Sky 12 here, just blowing through the intersections. Thank goodness, you know, there are no crashes involved in this, especially when you're dealing with a high-speed chase like this, and the driver definitely picking up steam as when he or she can and driving a lot faster. Again, we can see perhaps maybe that driver wearing a red ball cap or some kind of a hat in there. Looks to be like one person is in that vehicle when we were told that 3 other people had bailed out of that SUV. But again, police nearby, even though we haven't seen them. That driver is headed towards the Arizona Mills area. So if you know anyone who perhaps is in the South Phoenix area or maybe perhaps around Arizona Mills, definitely give them a heads up. We don't know, obviously, where this driver will end up, but anything can happen, and it is a very dangerous situation.
And to make this situation even more dangerous, it looks like that driver is on the phone, obviously distracted and only having one hand on the wheel. Talk about the driver still going eastbound on Baseline. It was at 24th Street. That was, say, 2 or 3 minutes ago, getting close to the Arizona Mills area. Thank goodness traffic is not very heavy at this hour as we approach 12:34. And Team 12 continues to follow this breaking news of what police are telling us could very well be a bank robbery suspect on the run in that black SUV. You see the driver there just get to another intersection and blow right through it. Sky 12 is following it. We do apologize. Sky 12 shot breaks up every once in a while, but it always goes right back to it. And again, that driver is approaching the Arizona Mills area, going eastbound on Baseline. Earlier, we know there were 4 people, we were told, involved in a robbery, potentially. 3 of them bailed from the SUV. Just the driver is left in it. And Tram, a minute ago, talked about that driver being down a dirt alleyway near 7th Street and Broadway. That was about 7 or 8 minutes ago. Kept going back and forth through that alley and then dropping something off or throwing it out the window and then taking off, and now getting into some heavier traffic as it gets closer and closer to what would be the Tempe area.
That's right. Arizona Mills located in Tempe. This is South Phoenix, though. The driver is still in the South Phoenix area. And I can tell you from this area, there's a lot of industrial buildings. It's very, a lot of companies are down there. And so with this, it's kind of getting clogged in traffic here, a lot more traffic than we have seen the driver just kind of blow through. But again, the driver rarely stopping. It only stopped at one intersection for a little bit. Right now, we're being told that SUV is near the area of I-10 and Baseline. So again, if you know anybody in this area, definitely give them a heads up of what's happening. We're assuming that police choppers are obviously in that area, as well as ground crews as well. Our crew, our Sky 12, closely watching the situation. Very tense. That vehicle just bumped another truck right there, you can see. Again, we're talking about an accident happening right here, spinning the SUV around, trapping that car. We have to wonder if these are pedestrians, or it looks like, nope, it looks like Phoenix police officers perhaps have him cornered.
Firing into the SUV. I believe they just fired into that SUV. We do not have control over this. We want you to know this is live television. You're watching what looks like undercover agents. They did a pit maneuver. They stopped this. There were a couple of puffs of smoke, and you could see what looked like the glass shattering on the front of that SUV. You now see what we believe are bullet holes on the front of it, and officers, undercover officers, going over to the driver as we speak. Again, this is live. We do not have control over it, so you have been warned for what you may or may not see here.
Yeah, this is a very tense situation. Again, we don't want to show you exactly just because we don't know what to expect, but you just did see undercover officers fire into that SUV. You saw the glass with some bullet holes in it. So we are closely monitoring the situation off the air because that was live, and we don't want to bring you anything that obviously would not be suitable for TV. But again, this all started out of a bank robbery that happened in Avondale. We're assuming the two were connected. This chase has been going on for at least 20 minutes or so, and it ended near I-10 and Baseline with undercover officers doing a pit maneuver to stop that vehicle.
And while we didn't see marked police units following it, now what we believe some of those SUVs, those dark-colored SUVs, were undercover officers potentially involved in this. They did the pit maneuver, and then what we believe fired the gunshots. We know that other people were in this SUV earlier today. We're told they bailed out, and it was just the driver in it at that time. And at the time that they performed that pit maneuver, it looked like traffic was getting heavier and heavier in that industrial area near I-10 and Baseline.
Yeah, the timing of it was definitely, it looked like it was definitely on purpose, because we were wondering where are the Phoenix police cruisers in the situation. But obviously you can see it almost looked at the beginning as though regular civilians were trying to corner that. But then obviously when you saw the officers come out with their guns, and then it looked like they had fired into that vehicle, it obviously was on purpose. Yeah. So again, we are monitoring this off the air. Of course, we'll bring you more updates, more information as soon as we get it, and obviously the condition of that driver.
And one of the things you have to wonder about is if the undercover officers particularly did this pit maneuver before that driver reached the interstate, and this could have very well turned into an extremely dangerous high-speed chase. We are back live now with Sky 12 over the area. The SUV in the middle, there's a dark one. That is the suspect SUV. The other two SUVs and what looks like a pickup truck, we believe, are from undercover officers. Just minutes ago, they performed a pit maneuver. Basically, they hit the back of that SUV, they spun it out, they surrounded it. We saw all the officers get out with their guns drawn, and it looked like at least one of them fired into that SUV. We could see a couple of puffs of smoke from a gun on the outside. We don't know if the suspect fired or had a gun, but then we saw the glass shatter, and we went away from the screen because we did not know what was going to happen next.
And it looks like easily there are at least half a dozen undercover vehicles right there. I counted 7 just from this vantage point from SkyToll right there. Looks like almost 8. A number of police officers on the scene. From this vantage point, we cannot see the driver. We don't know the condition. We are still trying to figure out exactly what happened. Again, just from our vantage point, it looked like they had fired into that vehicle. But we are still working on confirming if there were shots fired and how the driver is doing right now at this moment. But that whole entire intersection, I believe that looks to be near I-10 and Baseline. Now, a Phoenix fire truck is coming on scene as well, but it looks like that's happening near I-10 and Baseline right here. That entire intersection closed because this is how the end of the chase resulted in, and we're still waiting on the condition of that driver.
And you're exactly right on the location. That's eastbound Baseline. That ramp right there goes up to eastbound I-10. So the driver had pulled onto that ramp to get on the I-10, and that's when those undercover officers performed the pit maneuver. Now, we have not seen the driver come out of that SUV since the chase ended, and since what we believe we saw were gunshots being fired into there. Instead, there are a number of undercover and uniformed officers surrounding that SUV, talking and investigating. There is a fire truck, but this has gone on now. They've been at this scene since that chase ended for 5 to 6 minutes. We have not seen an ambulance rush out there. And again, we have not seen Phoenix police get the driver out of that SUV. We are working our sources to get the very latest on this to find out exactly why this started, if indeed it was connected to a robbery in Avondale that happened earlier today, if the chase is connected to that, and again, the situation and the very latest on the condition of that driver.
And you have to wonder, too, if medics will show up as well in this situation to come to the aid of this driver. But let's not forget that this driver also, prior to this and during the chase, prior to this ending, that driver had tossed out some kind of a bag or something black out of the window while he or she was in an alleyway in a residential area near 7th Street and Broadway. We still are trying to figure out exactly what that bag was. There was a woman nearby. It happened right in the back of her backyard there as she was trying to close a gate. So we are working on sending our crews out there to figure out exactly what happened. But you can tell this location here, I-10 and Baseline, that's all blocked off. Traffic obviously building at that area. But again, we're still waiting on the condition of this driver.
And one thing that without a doubt happened during this chase, that driver put a lot of people in danger. Thank goodness there were no innocent civilians hurt during that chase that went on for miles, at least 10 to 12 minutes. We've been following it live here on the air with Team 12 coverage. Sky 12 is over it the whole time, and right now officers are down there investigating. And I don't want to make an assumption, but I think the fact that paramedics are not rushing there could be very telling to see exactly what happened with that driver, because what we believe the shots were fired, the chase ended some 7-8 minutes ago now.
I have to say that, we've covered a lot of car chases in the past, and this particular one I find very interesting just in the sense that there were undercover vehicles involved in this. As this whole thing was unfolding, as we were bringing it to you live, the first assumption when we saw that pit maneuver by these vehicles, we almost thought, or at least I almost thought, that perhaps civilians, maybe regular drivers, are helping during this car chase. But no, as soon as those officers jumped out, we knew that those were undercover officers. And that's something that you don't see a lot. What you do see regularly are stop sticks being used and regular police cruisers being used. But in this particular situation, this was a little bit of a surprise, and I'm wondering, how, from a police officer's point of view, the strategy involved in this whole technique of trying to end a car chase.
It's also interesting that the chase did not involve lights and sirens from marked units to alert other drivers that there is a big potential danger on the road right now. That driver had turned again, going eastbound on Baseline. That's at the top left corner of the screen, turning right, which would be the ramp to I-10 eastbound. That is when the driver turned, and you're right, Trem. At first, it looked like almost that driver hit one of the SUVs, when in terms now...
Almost on accident.
Right.
It almost seemed that
That it wanted to just
kind of
get that SUV out of the way so it could take off on that ramp. And now, once we have learned that they were all undercover SUVs and a pickup truck there with undercover officers there. And again, what happened seconds after that, the suspect's SUV spun, and then it looked like gunshots were fired, at least from some of the undercover officers into the SUV. We saw the puffs of smoke. We saw a number of officers, at least 3 or 4, get out with their guns drawn. We saw some bullets going through the windshield. We do not know if the suspect had a gun or fired that gun, but we do know that suspect had been involved in a chase that we had been covering for at least 10 to 15 minutes. And now this area, eastbound baseline at the eastbound I-10, you can guess that this is going to be closed off for quite some time while officers investigate.
Yeah, so drivers, heads up, or anyone you know headed in this direction, know that it has been closed for, it could be quite some time. And again, this all unfolded until there's more confirmation on this, but it appears to be a bank was robbed in Avondale. This particular SUV took off. It was a high-speed pursuit, went through residential areas near 7th Street and Broadway, in and out of a back alleyway between some homes there. The driver threw out what appeared to be a black bag in the backyard of a woman who was standing by her gates. No word if perhaps maybe that driver knew that woman. Who knows if there was some kind of a connection there. But we're going to show you some video that was... This was video, we're being told, of when this car chase came to an end. We're going to show it to you any second now. And again, the surprising factor in all this was undercover vehicles being used to put an end to this chase that went on for at least a good 20 minutes or so.
Yeah, we've been following it. Sky 12 have been over it for 20 minutes. This is the end of it. Once again, the black SUV there, it got hit there by an undercover truck, and then another SUV comes in from behind it, spins it. That looks like another SUV goes ahead. They all pin it in. Officers get out. We're not going to show you the gunshots being fired, but we know those officers that got out with their guns drawn. If you look very closely now in the windshield of the black SUV that's in the metal, you can see at least 2, potentially 3 bullet holes that were fired during the end of this chase. And the other officers rushing over there to investigate, to go ahead and take a look at the condition of the suspect in this case. And then now, minutes later, you see the fire truck pull up. You see what looks like maybe 4 or 5 other undercover officers, cars, trucks, and SUVs in that area. And then after that, a number of other officers showed up. And again, they have this whole area of eastbound baseline at eastbound I-10 blocked off. We'll show it to you one more time here.
That's right. You can see how tricky and strategic that this whole maneuver was right there. We're talking 3 cars immediately pinning that SUV. That driver cannot go anywhere. And you saw the officers quickly jump out of that vehicle, and then again what looks like bullet holes right there in the front windshield. Now, as far as the driver is concerned, we still do not know the driver's condition, but we don't know the driver's background, the history, what have you. We're still working details on the name of the driver and how this whole thing unfolded, and again, if this driver is indeed connected to that robbery that happened at a bank in Avondale.
One thing, when you talk about the driver's condition, again, we have no official word of it, but we have not seen an ambulance rush to the scene there. We have also not seen police take the driver out of that SUV, not handcuff him or her, not drag him out that you'd usually see after a chase of this nature. And we also do not know if that driver had a gun or fired a gun as this chase ended. It's a very tense situation down there. There are a number of undercover officers and a number of uniformed officers that have now showed up to take a look at this investigation.
And it's amazing that this chase, this high-speed chase, did not result in more accidents, because that driver, in some situation, it was very precarious. There were a lot more vehicles and cars surrounding it. It was traveling on major Phoenix streets in South Phoenix in a heavily industrial area. We're talking off of Broadway, off of Baseline. So again, a lot of companies in that area. This is also lunch hour too. So a lot of people, more people being out and about. And it's a good thing that no pedestrians were hurt in this chase. It's a good thing that there were not any accidents. There was a couple of times when it looked like this SUV blew through a lot of intersections. It only came to a halt, it looks like maybe once, maybe even twice, and stayed there at a light, and then just deciding, you know what? they're not going to turn left. Instead, it just kept going straight through. But again, this is the result of what happened after this chase that lasted at least 20 minutes, ending near I-10 and Baseline here. And again, we're still waiting on details as far as the driver's condition and the circumstances surrounding this bank robbery that happened in Avondale.
I guess we still have to figure out exactly if it was Phoenix Police too involved in this chase in the undercover cars. As if it's a bank robbery, the FBI is usually involved in that as well, and they have a number of undercover vehicles as well. Talk about the pit maneuver that was used to go ahead and stop this SUV as it got on to the interstate. It was headed eastbound on I-10 on the ramp there, where it could have opened up a whole new bag of problems for investigators. It was pretty much a picture-perfect pit maneuver. They were able to hit it and spin it almost instantly. They cornered it with 3 undercover cars, and then the chase ended right there. We saw the gunshots, and now back out here live at Sky 12 as there may be almost a dozen units that we see in this area, a fire truck as well, and many more officers back behind it that are just west of here on Baseline Road, all investigating exactly what happened to end this chase and where everything goes from here in their investigation.
And you can see a lot of bystanders trying to figure out what happened in this situation. Something else that was kind of interesting to me, besides the fact that these were undercover vehicles involved in the end of this chase, was that, you know, when the officers came out and they were armed and they were aiming their guns or rifles or what have you at the driver, you have to wonder if this driver was armed.
Yes.
If he or she was armed and dangerous, because usually they'll demand that driver to come out of the vehicle. In this particular case, we didn't see that. So in this particular case, we saw what ended up to be, it looks like 3 bullet holes through the windshield. So you just kind of have to wonder, was this driver armed? And the situation, at the end, is this driver dead or alive?
Right, and investigators may have more information than we do right now about was there a gun used in this bank robbery, and they may have had that information that the driver may have very well been armed. We know that this person was dangerous, as you mentioned, driving on city streets at high speeds for some 20 minutes, putting innocent people's lives at danger, and then getting the pit maneuver to go ahead and crash there. We couldn't see exactly what was going on inside of that SUV at the time. We're sure that's one of the things that investigators are taking a look at now. They'll be looking at the idea of, did the undercover officers involved by any chance have body cameras on them that could have been hidden at the time to get a better vantage point? That's what they'll see as they go through their investigation. But without a doubt, as we take a look at video of this chase, it at some point got to high speeds on city streets. You talk about how dangerous this black SUV was. That's the one point, pretty much the only point during this chase where the SUV stopped was at Baseline and 24th Street. It could not turn left as it wanted to and just kept on going on Baseline and ended up getting here in some more traffic. That's when it started swerving. You could tell the driver at this point was getting very agitated, and you can see some of at least that dark SUV behind it, and another one looked like 2 of the undercover SUVs that helped end this from police or FBI or sheriff's deputies, whoever was involved.
It'll be so interesting when we talk to the experts and when we talk to Phoenix Police on the strategy that they used, because really the fact that they were, who knows for how long, but they were right on the driver's tail. I mean, throughout this pursuit, you didn't know that this driver was being closely followed by these undercover cops. So it'll be very interesting to see, when do they use undercover vehicles, when do they not? A lot of times during these chases, we blatantly see the police cruisers. So in this particular case, that was not the case.
And considering for how long that chase went on Baseline Road for, it makes you wonder, why didn't police put out a traffic stop to clear off traffic ahead of time? That way they could have gone ahead and used the spike strips there, because it went on Baseline, we know, from at least, say, 12th or 15th Street, 16th Street, all the way over to I-10.
It's almost like they waited for the perfect opportunity. When traffic got a little bit heavier, then they were able to kind of surround that vehicle, and then that's when it was a perfect turn, a perfect pit maneuver to just swing that car around, corner it, and then they've got their driver.
and that was right before that driver potentially would have gotten on eastbound I-10, opened up to a much bigger road and potentially a much more dangerous high-speed chase. In terms of the police or the investigative work on this, they have to say what they did ended up working. There were no civilians hurt. There were no crashes involved to anyone who is an innocent witness in this, and they did what they needed to. This is video of the SUV. It dropped off some sort of a bag, that black thing on the ground. This is in an alley somewhere near 7th Street and Broadway. And right before this, it was interesting. We kept wondering, why was this SUV going back and forth down a dirt alleyway? And maybe it was to go ahead and find that back entrance where it wanted to drop something off at.
And you have to think, the demeanor of that woman being so calm, that's why I kind of wonder if maybe the driver knew that woman. Yes, it was going back and forth, back and forth. You thought maybe, okay, well, it kind of hit a spot where it couldn't go any further, and then you thought that the vehicle was going to back out again onto the streets. No, it still kept going forward and backward. It's almost as if he or she was waiting for that particular moment where they were going to drop off that bag. What is in that bag? Who knows? Who that woman was, who knows? The driver, we're still waiting on information about that particular person, but a lot of unanswered questions. And again, as soon as that bag was dropped off, that's when the driver took off and hit the main streets.
Yeah, and not to use a cliche, but it seriously looked like something out of a movie. The whole chase did. This is again how it ended, with undercover investigative units there performing a pit maneuver, hitting the SUV, spinning it. The officers, or whomever the undercover investigators were, jumping out with their guns drawn, firing a number of shots into it. We are not showing you that right now on 12 News, but we know that they surrounded it afterward. There are at least 3 undercover units there and at least 6 undercover officers or deputies who were involved in this chase. We now know that it's been about 25 minutes since this ended. There's been no ambulance that has showed up on the scene there, and they have not pulled the suspect out of that SUV.
Quick recap for you. This all started out of a bank robbery that happened in Avondale. Then that's when Sky 12 took this pursuit live. We brought it to you towards the tail end of 12 News at noon, and around 12:30. That's when we were following this black SUV as it made its way and winded its way through residential areas in South Phoenix near 7th Street and Baseline, and then ended up at I-10 and Baseline. Again, the good news in all of this, no one was hurt in this situation. No pedestrians, no other crashes, no other cars were involved, except for the very, very end when that SUV got involved in a pit maneuver with undercover officers who were following it very close behind. We had no idea how this was going to end. Luckily, it ended with nobody else hurt in this situation.
And as you can imagine, Team 12 will be dedicating a number of resources to this police pursuit all day long. One more time now, we'll show you the pit maneuver from undercover officers or deputies that ended this very dangerous chase on Baseline Road that went through the streets of Phoenix. And we know, again, there were shots fired toward the end of this, working to figure out exactly who fired them and the condition of the suspect, and if indeed that suspect was involved in a bank robbery earlier today in Avondale, and also trying to get more information about 3 other potential suspects that we were told ran from that SUV when this chase began.
Of course, you can count on 12 News for the very latest. You can get the latest on 12news.com, and we'll have much more on this developing situation coming up first at 4 o'clock.
Good afternoon. Thanks for joining us. We first brought it to you as breaking news on 12 News today at noon. A police chase ends with a bank robbery suspect dead after undercover police officers rammed the suspect's car near I-10 and Baseline.
3 suspects were initially involved. At one point, 2 of them got out and ran off.
One of them was caught by a Maricopa County Sheriff's Office canine unit. The other one was taken into custody by Phoenix police officers.
The suspect driving the SUV kept going, weaving in and out of traffic through Phoenix. The driver nearly running into multiple cars as he tried to escape. The whole time, Sky 12 and police helicopters over the scene following the whole thing.
Now, at one point, the suspect goes into an alleyway, drives back and forth, and here's that. Keep an eye on it. He drops a bag out of his side of the car where a woman was standing by the whole time. Right now, we don't know if that woman was part of this.
All of this stemming from a bank robbery at a credit union in Avondale. Officers there tried to stop the suspect before police say that this guy fired at an officer.
Team 12's Ryan Cody is joining us live right now from where it all ended. Ryan.
Yeah, an abrupt ending for one of those 3 bank robbery suspects right here on the ramp for I-10 and Baseline Road in Tempe. Phoenix police using that pit maneuver to spin the suspect's black SUV right before he could get onto the interstate here. And here's a look at that maneuver from Sky 12 at about 12:45 this afternoon. You see 3 unmarked cars box in the SUV as the suspect attempted to turn right. At that point, one officer opened fire through the suspect's front windshield, killing the driver. It is important to know, as you mentioned, guys, that there were 2 other suspects in the car initially, and they were dropped off at one point in the West Valley before leading police here.
Both of those men are safely detained at this time. The 3rd suspect continued to flee in the vehicle, drove around Phoenix, down in through South Phoenix, discarded some evidence along the way, and ultimately ended up here at 48th Street and Baseline Road, or the I-10 and Baseline Road. Members of our Special Assignments Unit attempted to box him in the roadway. It's at that point shots were fired. That suspect has been killed here on the scene.
Investigators continue to work the scene out here as the road remains closed between Wienler Drive and the other side of I-10 East on Baseline Road. Now, it's important to know there were about 5 to 6 gunshots here. I heard them personally doing another story just down the road about 150 yards away, and that is when the cars collided. The gunshots happened, and the officers say that the man was pronounced dead at the scene. They're continuing to give us information. There's nothing new at this moment. We just spoke to Chief Yonner again. He has no new information at the moment. We'll continue to keep you updated throughout the evening. For now, though, we're live in Tempe. Ryan Cody, 12 News.
Okay, Ryan, now how about the alleyway? Everyone's wondering about that. Our team coverage continues at 4:30 with Team 12's Kevin Kennedy. He'll be live from that alley where the suspect, and we showed it to you, dropped that bag before taking off again.
Now, we saw behind Ryan there that the intersection appeared to still be closed there at Baseline and I-10. That is a very busy intersection for the folks who live down south. So definitely keep that in mind. If you know someone who travels in that direction on their way home tonight, you're going to want to call and give them a heads up, because that could get real tricky real fast with as much traffic as we see in that part of town. In other news now, we start with a dangerous caught on camera this afternoon. Sky 12 caught the dramatic end to the pursuit live. It ended with undercover officers ramming their SUVs into a bank robbery suspect's car near I-10 and Baseline. The suspect was then shot and killed.
Sky 12 footage minutes before showed the suspect speeding down Valley roadways after a bank robbery and subsequent shooting in Avondale. 2 other suspects were taken into custody after the chase ended.
Well, before ending, though, up near I-10 and Baseline, the suspect made a stop at a house near Central and Southern. He dropped off a bag behind that house in an alleyway. That's what you're seeing right there.
Team 12's Kevin Kennedy is live near that area. And Kevin, you have new info on who that woman was who picked up that bag?
I do, Joe. Police just actually cleared this scene a short time ago. This is the alley that suspect actually drove down while being chased. Now, from what we're being told by family members, the suspect that was shot and killed actually lives in this neighborhood. In fact, in a home right over this fence with his sister. Now, while police were pursuing him, he actually drove down this alley, got about halfway down this alley, and then started to back up that black SUV. After that, you actually see his sister open up that back gate. Now, it's unclear if she was actually on the phone with him at the time, but after passing by again, you then see him actually throw a small black bag out the window. His sister then goes to shut the gate, and the suspect takes off. A short time later, police responded to this home, officers talking to that woman. We don't know how or even if she is involved in any way in this robbery. We do know, though, that she is in police custody right now and that she is being questioned. At this point, though, it does not appear that she has been arrested. A short time ago, we talked with the husband, who was also home at the time when his wife went outside to find out what was going on.
I didn't hear anything. I mean, if he did something that I'm aware of what he threw out, what bag or whatever, I don't know what it is, but I'm pretty sure they know what it is, you know. And I don't think it was intended for my wife to grab the bag or anything like that. That's her brother, you know.
Once again, back live. We do not know exactly what was in that bag. However, we do know that she is being questioned right now by Phoenix police. A short time ago, police officers took her away from this home, most likely downtown, to be questioned. We're live in Phoenix. I'm Kevin Kennedy, 12 News.
All right, Kev, thanks. And 12 News continues to stay on top of this huge story. We'll take you to the bank robbery scene with our live team coverage on 12 News at 5. Coverage tonight on the deadly pursuit, beginning with Ryan Cody, who is live where it all came to an end near I-10 and Baseline. Ryan?
Yeah, it was a fatal ending for one of those 3 bank robbery suspects here at the on-ramp to I-10 from Baseline Road. Police successfully executing that pit maneuver to keep the black SUV from getting onto I-10. Definitely some quick thinking on the maneuver, but it was all part of a larger plan in place, relying on a view from the Phoenix police chopper. Cops were able to surround the SUV with unmarked cars, leading the suspect to believe he was not being followed. That's when the 3 undercover officers boxed in the suspect before shooting and killing a man who had already opened fire on police in Avondale.
The helicopter was essentially critical. This went on for some time. It allows us to safely follow it. It allowed the speeds to slow down during the pursuit. Our hope is that the suspect forgets that police are in the area or that he does not see that.
When we were turning right away, the officers told us, hey, you guys need to turn like right away. So we turned. As the moment we turned, we heard gunshots.
Several shots. Witnesses say possibly 5 or 6. An uneasy moment for a heavily trafficked area right around lunch hours, about 12:45 when this all happened here on the on-ramp to I-10 and Baseline Road. Police think that the suspect may have been on the phone with friends who could have possibly been watching the chase back at home, and this could take a long time to figure out exactly what happened here, as there are 4 different police agencies involved, as the chase encompassed 4 different towns, as well as the FBI, which is standard in any case that involves a bank robbery. Though for now, we are live in Tempe. Ryan Cody, 12 News.
All right, Ryan, some scary moments out there. Thank you. The investigation, though, still unfolding, where the whole thing started at a credit union West branch at 137th Avenue and Van Buren in Avondale.
We want to bring you some live pictures right now from the scene where law enforcement is still gathering evidence and the police tape is still up. Now, during the pursuit, the driver of the SUV headed into an alley near Central and Rozier, tossing out a bag next to where a woman was standing at a gate, and then he kept on driving.
Team 12's Kevin Kennedy is live right now at that home tonight, continuing our live team coverage. And Kev, what have you uncovered so far?
Yeah, certainly some tense moments this afternoon. This is actually the alley that guy drove down when he was being pursued by Phoenix police, and we now know why. According to family members, the suspect actually lives in a home in this neighborhood with his sister. Now, watch what happens when he actually starts to drive down this alley. He actually passes an open gate and the house where he's living at. He then backs up to the street, and at this point, you can actually see his sister come outside. He then goes past that open gate again before backing up just one more time. This time, he stops, throws out that small black bag from the car, and then you see his sister go to shut the gate as he takes off. Police who are watching all of this from above in a helicopter dispatch a unit to this home. The woman has been questioned. She's been taken to a police station for further questioning this evening, but we have not been told that she is under arrest. Her husband, who was also home at the time, spoke with us a short time ago.
Unfortunately, her brother made a decision today where he made a mistake, and the consequences was losing his life. So, I mean, it doesn't have anything to do with us.
Once again, this is the gate where all this took place. This is the alley. The woman right now being questioned by Phoenix police. She was told about an hour and a half ago what happened with her brother. We will stay on this story all night, bring you the very latest coming up later on tonight at 10. For now, though, we're live in Phoenix. I'm Kevin Kennedy, 12 News.